Take this outfit back to the market. It's from one of my customers, the woman who sells female clothes. Her shop is painted yellow and brown. She'll be expecting you.
Okay, ma.
The target is on his way. Make no mistakes. I trust you for a tidy job. You have all the details, so no mistakes.
In a city where shadows whisper louder than words, where love comes wrapped in secrets, a boy was born into silence, but death followed him like a shadow. What happens when poison is served with motherly care? When lullabies echo even as graves are dug? When envy grips a woman's heart, who truly pays the price? This is not just a story. This is war. Blood beneath the wrapper, where families shatter and bloodlines tremble, where every heartbeat tells a story and every choice leaves scars, where love and hatred collide and destiny exacts its price. Blood beneath the wrapper.
There once lived a respected businessman named Oba, who lived in the heart of Lagos in a quiet luxury estate in Surulere with his wife Titi, a gentle soul whose grace could calm a storm. Titi was an orphan, abandoned at birth and raised in the narrow halls of St. Tabitha's orphanage. Life had tested her early. She knew hardship like a second skin, yet she grew up with heart full of light, soft-spoken, loyal and deeply kind. It was during their university days that fate crossed her path with Oba's. They were young, hopeful and wildly in love. She was the butter on Oba's bread, she was the sugar in his tea, she was the pepper in his macaroni, and they fell so much in love that after their school days, they got married. Their bond was deep, the kind of love that softened even the hardest heart. So when Oba took Titi as his wife, friends and family gathered in joyous celebration. Their wedding was the talk of the town. It was the kind that draws tears even from the proudest fathers. Music filled the air. People rejoiced, feet danced, and smiles were everywhere. A queen had been crowned. They had made it, and together they walked hand in hand from humble beginning, and they made silent wealth. Together they built not just a house, but houses, many grand structures, and in one of those grand structures, tucked away in the heart of Surulere's luxury estate, stood a proud building of 4 spacious 3-bedroom apartments. They lived in one of the apartments. The remaining 3 they rented out to their tenants, families just like theirs, and they lived among them, while they, the landlords, shared the same compound. It was a private compound, serene and walled off from the chaos of Lagos life. A quiet empire with Titi and Oba as its silent monarchs. They were the perfect couple, envied by all in public. Everybody wished they could be like them. They were envied and they were the role models. But behind their doors, behind closed doors, behind the marble walls of their home, something was missing. Something stole their joy. A child. For 15 long years, Titi's womb remained silent. There was no cry of a baby. Her stomach was as flat as board. No cry of the baby broke their night. No laughter from the womb echoed in the compound. The silence grew heavier, hanging like fog around them. They went to every clinic you can think about, every church in the neighborhood, every fasting program. Still, Titi's womb remained silent. Then came the whispers from people. They began to talk. Neighbors began to talk. Friends began to talk. What is happening? When are you going to carry your baby? Oba's family was not left out. His mother, Mama Oba, a woman of tradition and thunder, was not left out in all these questionings. She always asked, yet Oba held Titi with loyalty, shielding her and protecting her from the sharp wagging tongues of people, family and friends. But his mother, Oba, continued to press, saying things like, a tree without fruit cannot claim a forest. So one of the days when Mama Oba visited and Titi was serving her tea quietly, Mama Oba snapped, "What use is a wife who fills plates but no cradles? I did not raise Oba to be the last branch of our family tree. What is your womb doing? Sleeping?" Titi trembled as she held back her tears. Mama Oba, seeing this, continued, but now tearfully, "I love you, Titi, but you gave me silence for 15 years. How can I not break?" It wasn't hatred. It was the desperation of a mother watching her son fade into legacy with no heir to carry it. Oba intervened, begging peace. But in that moment, in that single moment, something inside Titi broke. Something inside Titi broke also. That day, Titi could carry her pain no longer. She walked into the empty church, a sacred place where her heart had once danced in hope. She moved straight to the altar. Her hands clutched her flat belly. Her knees hit the cold marble floor. Her voice cracked through the silence. "Oh Lord, show me mercy and bless my womb." These were her prayers. There were no witnesses, only the walls, the stained glass, and the heavens above. And so, Oba, torn by love and duty, married a second wife. Her name was Nike. She was younger, she was bolder, and she was as beautiful as a rising star. Mama Oba soon repented of her actions. Even though Titi had remained childless for 15 years, she was worth more than a multitude of sons and daughters combined. So, Mama Oba decided to seek her forgiveness. And so that fateful Saturday night, she walked through the living room. It was unusually quiet, the kind of quiet that carried weight. The curtains swayed softly, the TV was off, and in that moment, the only thing that made sound was the ticking wall clock and the soft clink of Titi rinsing plates in the kitchen. Then there was a knock on the kitchen door, though it stood already ajar. Not the sharp, impatient kind, but a hesitant knock. Titi wiped her hands and looked in the direction of the door. It was Mama Oba. She faced forward again, holding her breath, wondering what it could be this time. Had she come to taunt me again? Had she come to taunt me about my childlessness? She wondered. Mama Oba stepped in, not with her usual loudness, but with a lowered head and a heart filled with guilt. She looked around the tidy kitchen that had the smell of jollof rice all over. Then Mama Oba spoke softly. "Titi, my daughter, I did not come to fight. I came to ask for something I never imagined I would." Titi said nothing. She stood still and composed, watching the woman who once stabbed her with words now wobble towards the center of the kitchen. Then, with regret, Mama Oba continued, "That day, when I called you Barry, I thought I was speaking the truth, but I know now that I was speaking fear. You see, I had Oba after 5 years of waiting, 5 long years of shame. Women mocked me. I drank every bitter root known to women. Oba is the only child my womb ever gave me. So when I saw you waiting, I panicked and I let my pain become your punishment. I was wrong and I am sorry." Titi leaned against the kitchen slab, her hands folded, her face unreadable, but her eyes had softened. Mama Oba continued, "Titi, I judged you. I wounded you with my words, and I ask today, not as Oba's mother, but as a woman like you, forgive me." The fridge hummed quietly. The neighbor's generator coughed to life in the distance, and in that small luxury Surulere apartment, two women stood in the shadow of old wounds and the slow sacred light of healing. Few weeks after Nike came into the household, the miracle Titi had longed for finally visited her. Like a long-awaited whisper from heavens, Titi's womb stirred. She became pregnant. God had answered her prayer. Perhaps too late. Mama Oba rejoiced. Oba was overjoyed. There was noise in the compound. It was unbelievable. God had done it. God had blessed them. But Nike stood frozen as the news broke. She was disappointed. In order to mask her anger, in order to mask her disappointment, she pretentiously let a smile stretch across her face. She masked her rage behind a tight smile. Her heart, that was once filled with ambition, now bubbled with envy. Her heart was a storm. Inside her, ambition twisted into a venomous envy. The throne she thought was now hers has now been pulled away from her even before she could warm the seat. Oh no, she thought. She had married Oba, the wealthy, patient man of prestige. She had charmed his aging mother, Mama Oba, with sweet words and swift obedience. She had stepped into a beautiful Surulere apartment. No shaking, no retreat, no surrender. It was already built and bustling with the life she had only dreamed of. And most importantly, she had replaced Titi, that quiet, barren ghost of a woman who had failed to give Oba a child for over a decade. Everyone had whispered it. All hail Nike. She will succeed where Titi had failed. They had hailed her, the fruitful one, the redeemer of Oba's lineage. She was supposed to be the chosen wife now, the fruitful one, the future. She has seen it all in her head. A son of her own, Titi's quiet, shameful exit, Mama Oba's full loyalty, and eventually the entire estate, the properties and wealth, all in her name. This was not just ambition. This was spirit of entitlement, wrapped in lipstick and silk. But fate, no, Titi's God had played a cruel joke. So as family celebrated, Nike retreated to her room. She stared at herself in the mirror that night. She touched her belly. It was still flat. It was as flat as board. It was still empty. Why now? Why her? Her hand trembled. The rage was silent but volcanic. This wasn't just a setback. This was a betrayal by fate itself. Behind the locked door, she gripped her wrapper with trembling fists. Her teeth clenched so tight they ached. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She plotted. But then, she too became pregnant. The compound again rejoiced. This was double blessing. The compound buzzed. Yet, Nike never found peace. Her heart never found a place for peace. Each night, Nike sat up in bed, staring at the ceiling, her rage boiling deep and hot like bitter herbs in a pot. She would give him a son, a first son, and then what? I'll become a furniture in my house, a second fiddle with no relevance. But it wasn't just about pride. It was envy. Envy that Titi's child would bind Oba's heart permanently. Titi's face glowed with pregnancy. Her feet were swollen, but her spirit strong and peaceful. She fetched water on her own. She cooked without complaint. She walked about graciously. She greeted people happily. She was grateful to God. She was gracious about everything. She had laughter all over her. She had smile always on her face. But Nike was angry, and she put her plot into action. Nike sought the one woman whose stories feared anyone that heard it, whose presence feared anyone that had ever encountered her. She sought the one woman, Arokbola, the native daughter of the ancient Falala shrine, tucked deep within the thick bush of Ikorodu. So on one fateful moonless night, Nike walked into the forest, guided by a single wooden torch and her heart pounding fast as if it will jump out from her chest. She had earlier convinced Oba that she needed to visit her cousin who lived in Ikorodu and that she would be returning the next day. As she walked, she noticed the hut. The hut appeared suddenly, half swallowed by the roots of an Iroko tree, its roof covered in black feathers and reeking of horror. A woman stepped out, her eyes sharp, her skin the color of rain-drenched charcoal. Arokbola appeared in a mysterious, almost mystical manner. "I felt you coming," Arokbola said. "You have envy in your throat and poison in your thoughts." Nike knelt quickly. Arokbola motioned for her to go inside. Then while kneeling in the hut, Nike began. "Great one, I need your help. I want peace in my home." "Peace?" Arokbola chuckled darkly. "What you want is removal." Nike bowed her head. "Yes." Arokbola turned into the inner chambers of her hut. A moment later, she returned with a small clay pot sealed with red wax. Inside is the power of silence. Mix it into her food, little by little. Never too much, or she will die too soon and reveal your hands. But a pinch of every of this powder, every day will drain her. Her blood will thin, her breath will fade. And when the time comes, she will have no strength to push life into the world. Nike's hands trembled as she accepted the pot. "What's the price?" she asked. Arokbola looked up at the sky. "The gods do not take naira, they take balance. When a mother feeds death to another mother, she must be ready to lose sleep forever." "I accept," Nike whispered. And she left Arokbola's shrine. As she got home, she put her plot into action. From that day, Nike became sugar and honey to Titi. She brought her food. She smiled warmly. She called her Iyalemi, which meant my senior wife. And she insisted that she rest while she did all the cooking. She claimed she was younger and stronger, and she always knelt to greet her and gave her over respect, the kind of respect you will not imagine. She knelt to greet, and she knelt to serve her every meal she served her. And in every bowl of pepper soup, every plate of yam porridge, every pinch of that powder disappeared into Titi's stomach. The powder walked like a silent, invisible killer. Titi, never suspecting a thing, started speaking of tiredness with occasional headache and a wave of dizziness. But to her, it was not unusual. After all, she was pregnant, and she saw all these as signs and symptoms of pregnancy. Her laughter soon became infrequent, her eyes dulled, but she appeared very strong, so nobody ever suspected a thing. She was strong and often felt She wasn't resting well, but at last she was dying. 3 weeks later, Titi went into labor. Titi's scream pierced the compound like sharpened spears. She bled, she screamed, she prayed, she clawed at sheets. Oba had planned his business trips in such a way that he would be around to witness the joyous delivery of his first child. Oba rushed her to the hospital for safe delivery, but Nike was absent. She had deliberately planned her absence to coincide with an urgent engagement elsewhere. Mama Oba wept in the hallway of the hospital, her frail hands clasped together as tears streamed down her cheeks. Each sob escaped with a whispered prayer, trembling on her lips like incense rising to heaven. Despite all the harsh words and past regrets, she loved Titi deeply. Her heart ached for Titi, her daughter-in-law, her daughter in spirit. And in that moment, fear and love battled within her, and every cry from the labor ward pierced her soul like a blade. The doors of the delivery room soon swung open slowly. A hush fell across the hallway. The doctor stepped out, his face carved with sorrow. "She didn't make it," he said softly. "Only the child survived." The words struck like thunder in the cloudless sky. Oba paced the hallway in pain. Mama Oba staggered back, her wail erupting like a crack in the earth. She collapsed into the cold floor, beating her chest as if to wake a heart that had shattered beyond repair. "Ah, Titi, Titi, no!" she cried, her voice echoing through the sterile corridor. "Why? Why? Why?" she continued crying. She looked up to heaven in anguish. At some point, Oba stood still, stunned, his world still unraveling. He was still processing the information. Mother and son soon embraced each other, crying. Hours later, Nike arrived, draped in black, like a raven, drawn to grief. She didn't ask what happened. She already knew. She came prepared to mourn. Calmly, she walked up to Oba and Mama Oba, looking indifferent and undisturbed. Mama Oba's tear-filled eyes met Nike's calm gaze, and in that moment, that heavy, hollow moment, the silence between them roared louder than any scream. When they called them into the ward to see the baby, Nike set her plan into motion. She began to cry to keep up her appearance. So all three, Mama Oba, Oba and Nike, were in tears as they saw the baby. But Nike's eyes were consistently on the baby. For a moment, she had felt victorious. Titi was gone. But the child, that child, he still lived. The poison had failed to erase everything. And from that moment, Nike hated the boy with the fury of a failed plan. To her, every cry from Nifemi was Titi's voice rising from the grave. Oba named his son Oluwa Nifemi, Nifemi for short, which meant God loves me. He mourned Titi and loved his son, but he did not see the poison that had begun to take root in Nike's soul. Weeks later, Nike gave birth to her own son, and the son was named Soji. Oba was still in deep mourning. He wanted Titi buried in the village in their ancestral home. But Mama Oba suggested, traditionally we don't always take people dead home. We don't always take the dead home. We can let her rest here in Lagos. But Oba insisted, let her return. Maybe if she's buried there, I'll feel like she never left. So they traveled to the village. And so, at Titi's burial, Nike set her plot again into action. She put on the performance of a lifetime. She wailed louder than even the grieving widower himself, flinging herself to the earth with such force that even the elders had to hold her back. She lay on the coffin and refused to get up or be consoled. "She was my sister, my soul twin, oh," she cried, beating her chest and smearing her tears across her cheeks like war paint. As Nike got wind that Titi's coffin was being moved towards the open grave to be lowered into the earth, she broke away from the mourners who were holding her. She tore her wrapper dramatically, exposing her dust-covered leg. She lunged forward, screaming, "Let me follow her. Let me be buried with her," while running to the grave, threatening to jump in and be buried with her loved one. The mourners gasped. Some wept harder at the sight, touched by her display, touched by her show of love, touched by her brokenness. Nike was drenched in grief, or so it seemed. Yet beneath that veil of sorrow, behind every tear and every tremble, was a heart that rejoiced. For her, Titi's death was not a loss, but a victory. And this performance, it was necessary because the village, they had to see it. They had to know it. They had to know that yes, a junior wife was mourning a senior wife. It was a necessary act to keep suspicion at bay. But Mama Oba watched in silence from the window of her parlor, as it was customary wrong for her to attend a younger person's funeral. But from the window of her parlor, she could sight what was going on in the open space within the compound. Her eyes narrowed at the sight of it all. Something felt off. Mama Oba stood still, her face lined not just with age, but with something deeper. Instinct. As Nike ran in the direction of the open grave, Mama Oba's eyes did not soften like the others. Instead, they hardened, narrowing into slits of quiet discernment. She clutched her wrapper tightly, unmoved by the younger woman's outburst, while others cried with Nike, believing her grief. Mama Oba felt a different stirring in her spirit. Dread. There was something too loud about Nike's mourning, too rehearsed. Mama Oba had buried friends, sisters, even her own husband, but she had never seen this kind of thing. She had never seen this violent, theatrical grief. Nike was not broken. She was playing a part. Mama Oba didn't speak. She simply looked at Nike. And in that silence, a seed of suspicion was planted, one that would grow with time. At some point, Mama Oba snapped. She could not take it any longer. "Leave her! All of you! Leave her with the dead!" Without another word, the mourner stepped back, and Nike ran to the open grave. But seeing that no one was running after her again to hold her back and plead with her, she stopped. She stopped her dramatic display. She instead fell at the edge of the grave. There, she flailed and wailed, crying and shouting, crying with such deep pain that could pierce the heart, crying with a deep, in-depth pain. She knelt at the edge of the open grave, weeping uncontrollably. She rolled on the ground, then ran off towards the surrounding houses in the village. When she noticed that still no one was trying to stop her, she sat on the ground instead and continued to cry profusely. Her theatrics had been complete. Mama Oba turned to the sky and muttered, "God, open your eyes. This house is under siege." After Titi's burial, while mourners still lingered and the earth on Titi's grave was still fresh and moist, Mama Oba returned, not as a guest, but as a mother on a mission, her face carved by grief, yet anchored by conviction. She didn't raise her voice or argue. She came for Nifemi. "I will take the child," she said quietly. Nike, startled, stepped forward. She had just laid Soji to sleep and held Nifemi swaddled in soft Ankara cloth. "Mama, let him stay," she said, forcing a warm smile. "He's not my son, oh. You know Titi is gone. Let me raise him. I'll raise him with Soji. I'll be happy to care for both of them. I'm now his mother." But Mama Oba shook her head slowly. Her voice remained calm, but it cut deep with quiet logic. "You just had a baby, my dear. Soon another may follow. Raising two little ones is not a small task. The burden of motherhood is not light. Let me ease your burden. Let me take him with me." Oba stepped in, hoping to appeal to his mother's heart. "Mama, please, let him stay. Having Nifemi here is like having Titi close. I'm not releasing my son, oh." But Mama Oba turned to him with a mother's tenderness and truth. You'll be gone again before next week ends. Tell me, how many nights have you spent under your own roof since this boy was born?" She paused, her eyes softening just to show she wasn't without pain. "Titi is gone, and I know you miss her too." Then she turned to Nike, her tone shifting to a deceptive gentleness. "Even you, Nike, I know your hands are full. He needs consistency, not absence. He needs family. You alone cannot be both father and mother to two little babies. Let me ease the stress." Silence followed. Nike looked down, trapped between protest and practicality. Oba sighed, defeated by the truth in his mother's words. Without another word, Mama Oba reached for the infant, Nifemi. Nifemi, just barely a month old, whimpered softly as he was lifted from Nike's arms. Mama Oba held him close, her wrinkled cheeks resting against his newborn skin. She gave him a warm embrace, the young infant being held in her hands. And so she took him, not just as a grandmother, but as a guardian of a legacy. They both remained in the village, while Nike, Oba, and baby Soji returned to the bustle of Lagos. Mama Oba raised Nifemi in the quiet hills of Oduana, where the wind whispered through the mango trees and time moved slowly. There, under her care, Titi's son grew, strong and wise, watched over by the one woman who was determined not to let her daughter's memory fade. 10 years had passed, and the hills of Oduana had molded a boy into a quiet storm. Nifemi, tall, sharp-eyed, his mother's chin, his father's stance, stepped into the compound of his birth, like a ghost returning to haunt the living. Mama Oba, firm and graceful, despite the years, had brought him back. Her duty was done. Oba had requested that his son be returned to him, but she had denied the request until now. She felt that 10 years was enough for a boy to be separated from his father, and that he was now grown enough, and also considering Oba's persistent disturbance to have his son back. But as they crossed the threshold of Oba Suruleri's home, something shifted in the air. Something cold, something poisonous. Nike stood at the doorway with open arms as Nifemi returned, flanked by Mama Oba. Her face bore the warmth of a mother, her lips stretched into a smile. "Welcome home," she said, but inside her heart thundered with silent rage. She already had 3 children now, Soji, Bola, and little Shegun. Soji was few weeks younger than Nifemi and was her pride. Bola had come a year after Soji. She was spirited and sharp-tongued. Shegun, her baby, was now 7 and full of questions, very inquisitive. Together, they were her world, her legacy, her all and all. And now, here was Nifemi, the ghost of Titi, reborn. From the moment he stepped into the compound, Nike's old fury reignited. He looked too much like Oba. He walked like Titi. His presence pulled the past into the present with every breath he took. And worse, Oba's eyes lit whenever he looked at the boy. That love, that unbearable, unshakable love, it turned Nike like thorns in her soul. In Nifemi, she saw everything she wanted erased. Titi's memory, Titi's child, Titi's victory. No, she whispered in her heart. This, this cannot stand. From that day forward, a plan began to brew. A dark plan forged in silence. Because for Nike, one truth rang louder than all others. She had to end it. She had to end him. Nike showed Nifemi an overwhelming amount of love while Mama Oba was around. But Mama Oba remained unconvinced. Deep in her heart, she carried a quiet fear. She never underestimated Nike. She only brought Nifemi back because she believed Nifemi was old enough to experience the love and care of his father. And because of Oba's pressure, that was why she eventually considered bringing him back and finally brought him back to his father. Oba, on the other hand, was completely taken in by Nike's display of affection. On one of the days, he and Nike took Mama Oba and Nifemi out for sightseeing with Soji in tow. Nike bought ice cream and gave Nifemi the largest portion. When Oba asked about it, Nike explained that she simply wanted to give Nifemi everything he had missed while he was away in the village, and even give him more. Oba was touched. This woman with a heart of gold. And he thanked her for her sacrifices and her understanding. Nike often treated Nifemi to ice cream, good meals, and showered him with gifts. Mama Oba made sure Nifemi was enrolled in school, and she took him there and back on his first day. Nifemi was very happy. He smiled all the way home with Mama Oba, and throughout the entire day, he was very excited that he had started school in the city. Soon after, Mama Oba had to return to the village. Nifemi wept. She had been the only mother he had known for 10 years. But before she left, Mama Oba hugged him tightly and said to him, "Be a good boy and always remain prayerful to Almighty God." Mama Oba returned to the village. Oba had barely driven off for his usual 2 weeks trip when Nike dropped her act. The moment his tail lights vanished, her tone changed. Nifemi had called out, "Mommy, mommy." She replied without mincing words, "Your mother is in the grave. Don't ever call me your mother again. I can tolerate you calling me that when your father is around, but whenever he is not around, don't try it. Don't ever call me that." She made him scrub the floors, wash his younger siblings' clothes, and do all the chores and errands alone. The boy, only 10, worked from dawn to dusk, his hands raw from chores. Nike locked the kitchen, feeding him leftover crusts or nothing at all. At night, he called up hungry, using a rag wrapper as his blanket. But when Oba returned, she would dress Nifemi like a king. She would serve him meat in his soup and give him choice meals and praise him. "Nifemi is becoming such a good boy," she would say, beaming with smiles and kissing him on the forehead. Oba smiled, never suspecting the truth behind those hollow words. One evening, after Nifemi dared to cry while Nike slapped him for spilling water, she grabbed his ears and yanked it very hard. "If you ever tell your father or anyone, I will cut off your tongue while you sleep. Do you hear me?" Nifemi nodded through tears, the fear cementing his silence forever. When Oba called from his trips and asked to speak with Nifemi, Nike would lie. "He's asleep," or "he's helping his siblings with homework." She never let him near the phone. And when Oba returned, Nike's show continued. New clothes for Nifemi, cooked stew, choice meals, kingly treats, fake laughter. "You're spoiling him," Oba chuckled once. Nike kissed his head. "Only because he reminds me of you." By the next term, Nike stopped paying Nifemi's school fees. "You are not my son. Ask your dead mother to pay your school fees and buy you books." While her own children went off in polished uniforms, Nifemi stayed home to wash their lunch boxes. When the headmaster sent notes home, she burned them in the fire. To Oba, she said, "The teacher said he's struggling and needs a break. I want to give him time at home, to monitor him and to help him build confidence. I've arranged for a home tutor so he won't miss out anything. By next term, he will join the other pupils in class, bold, confident and well adapted." Oba, trusting her wisdom, agreed. Nifemi watched from the compound, tears running down his cheeks as he saw his classmates walk by with backpacks and school uniforms. One day, Nifemi broke a plate while washing dishes. Nike flew into a rage, grabbing a broomstick and beating him up mercilessly, beating him up until his back bled. Her children watched silently, accustomed to the violence. She locked him up in the store for 2 days. No food, no water. Rats scurried in the corners as Nifemi cried in the darkness. When Oba returned, Nike quickly opened the store, cleaned him up and gave him new slippers. "He fell while running," she lied, her eyes glistering with false concern. Oba looked at his bruises, concerned. "Nifemi, what happened?" he asked. Nifemi, fearful, only whispered, "I fell." Nike perfected her deceit. She would hug Nifemi when Oba watched. She continued her act. She would kiss him on the forehead and continued gifting him clothes. She would gift him even the used clothes she had earlier torn and has now mended. She would also give him choice meals and allow him to eat on the dining table, which, if Oba wasn't around, he would just be eating on the floor, eating remnants on the floor. She forced him to call her mother in public. Nifemi, who was once cheerful and talkative, now became a quiet shell. The boy once who dreamed of becoming a doctor no longer smiled, no longer had a future ambition. He feared sleep, he feared waking, he feared hope. Each time Oba packed his bags for another trip, Nifemi's heart sank. His heart jumped out from his chest. The door would close and the mask would fall. The nightmares would return. But deep inside, a flicker remained. A belief that someday, someone would see, someone would know, love would find him again. The compound was not as quiet as Nike believed. Her shouts, her curses, and the sound from the broomsticks slashing flesh echoed beyond her fence. Neighbors heard. Children paused their play. Mothers froze mid-soup stir. Men cleared their throats and pretended not to hear anything. Some of the neighbors sighed to themselves. That poor boy. He doesn't even cry loud anymore. Some neighbors gossiped to themselves. Nifemi looks thinner every week. I saw bruises on his neck last time. She treats him like a stray dog. Yet no one confronted Nike. They feared her like what I cannot tell. They feared her sharp tongue and her husband's respectable status. Oba, the proud businessman, their landlord, and she was their landlady after all. So they looked away. He's not her real child, some rationalized. Who are we to interfere into another woman's home? Others said. Nifemi became that boy who walked unseen. His pains became part of the background noise, like crowing roosters or crying infants, heard but never addressed. But not everyone remained silent. Mama Bisi, an elderly widow next door, had seen enough. She had no husband to consult, no wealth to protect, and no fear of Nike's threats. One harmattan morning, as she stood in front of her compound, she saw Nifemi limping behind the house, dragging a full bucket of washed clothes to spread, and with his hands shaking. Nifemi, she called. He froze, eyes wide with fear. He had grown in fear. Come here, she said. He obeyed, flinching as if expecting a slap. She touched his back gently and felt fresh welts under his shirt. She blinked, tears filling her eyes. My child, what has she done to you again? Before Mama Bisi could continue, and before Nifemi could answer, Nike's voice rang out like war drum. Nifemi! Where are you? He dashed off like a scared rabbit. That afternoon, Mama Bisi paid Nike a visit. You will kill this boy one day, and we will all be cursed for watching, she thundered. Nike hissed and backed back. Mind your business, old woman. He's my husband's son, not yours. Exactly, Mama Bisi snapped. Your husband's son, not your punching bag. The visit achieved nothing. Nike smiled wider. Nifemi walked slower, and Mama Bisi wept at night, knowing that she had tried, but all was in vain. In an environment where silence was safer than truth, one voice had risen, Mama Bisi's voice. But even thunder sometimes dies in the wind. When Mama Oba visited to see how well Nifemi had adjusted to his environment, her eyes scanned every corner of the home, not for dust, but for truth. Nifemi moved like a ghost through the house. Quiet, too quiet. His shoulders slouched. His eyes avoided hers. The laughter of Nike rang through the rooms like a well-rehearsed play. But Mama Oba was no fool. She had lived long enough to recognize performance. She called Nifemi to sit by her side. Nike quickly intervened, claiming he needed rest as he had just finished eating. But Mama Oba insisted. As Nifemi sat close to her, Mama Oba leaned in and whispered gently into his ears. Tell me, my son, are you being treated well here? If yes, nod and smile. If no, just look at me. She doesn't need to know. Mama Oba was coding, because that was Mama Oba's only option. Nike never allowed her a moment with Nifemi. She was everywhere, and where she couldn't be, she would ensure her children lingered, always ready to report back. But Nifemi was too scared to cooperate with Mama Oba's desperate move. After all, I will still be left alone with her when everybody is gone. He paused too long. Then, without meeting her eyes, he spoke aloud. Yes, Grandma, Mommy Nike treats me well. His words cut through the air like a blade. Mama Oba's quiet strategy was exposed. Nike now knew exactly what had been said in whispers, and she smiled with victory. Mama Oba sat still, but her heart screamed. Throughout her stay, Nike never left that boy alone with her. She hovered, she watched, and Nifemi obeyed in silence. Then Oba returned from a business trip. That evening, Mama Oba asked for a word in private. She spoke with the weight of a mother's wisdom and a grandmother's fear. "Open your eyes, Oba," she said. "That child is suffering in silence. A cracked pot still holds water, but not for long. The sweetest fruits rot quietly when worms eat from within." But Oba brushed her words aside. "What now, Mama? Should I marry a third wife? Since matchmaking is what you seem to love." Mama Oba's voice turned sharp. "If you won't protect him, I will. I'll take him back with me." Oba's expression hardened. "Try it, and I will report you for kidnapping. I'll make it legal. Be grateful, Mama. Nika is a virtuous woman. Be grateful." Mama Oba stood in silence. She knew she had been dismissed. But as she turned away, her eyes rested on Nifemi's door. Inside that room, a boy sat, learning to bury his pain in silence. Crushed by the weight of powerlessness, Mama Oba could only watch from behind the veil of forced smiles. Her heart screamed, but her hands were tied. And when her visit came to an end, she returned to the village, not in peace, but in torment, carrying with her the unspoken cry of a grandson left in the shadows. Mama Oba's heart still knew no peace when she got to the village. Determined to make one final stand, she took her case to the elders of Oduana, desperate to reclaim her son, desperate to reclaim her grandson, convinced the boy was only truly safe under her care. But Oba refused to let him go. The elders set a date for the judgment and summoned Oba to the village. When he arrived, he prostrated before the king and elders while Mama Oba knelt in respect. Oba declared firmly that his son must remain under his roof, insisting the boy was well catered for. But Mama Oba countered, her voice trembling, claiming Nifemi was not safe and was wasting away. Pressed by elders to explain, she was unable to offer proof for her dark suspicions. Oba accused her of being suspicious and ungrateful. Mama Oba pressed further, saying, "What an elder sees while sitting, a child will not see even from the tallest mountain." She called Oba an absent father, not just in body, but in heart. Oba rose. "I have not abandoned my home. I go out to make ends meet. That is why God gave me a strong woman like Nike to hold forth. But instead of gratitude, I received suspicion." He added that he watches things when he's around and that Nifemi gives him positive feedback. After deliberation, the elders ruled that Nifemi would stay with his father, declaring that a boy should grow under his father's guidance. They also affirmed that a man like Oba must fend for his home. He has not fled, he has not failed, he's not an absent father. They warned Mama Oba to stop casting shadows of doubt unless she possessed truths they did not know. They reminded her how bitterly Nike had wept at Titi's burial, proof enough for them in their eyes of her loyalty. Mama Oba lost the case with impunity. She lost the case gallantly. She lost the case with flying colors. And with it, her final hope of rescuing and reclaiming Nifemi was gone. Nike returned to Aropola, the same native doctor she had once visited. This time, she asked for something stronger. The herbalist obliged her. Aropola gave her a black powder and whispered, "Sprinkle this at dawn. Whosoever crosses it first will die, slow and certain, before the moon returns." The next morning, Nike sprinkled the powder at the entrance of the kitchen, the one place she knew Nifemi would surely go. Then with a sweet voice, she called out, Nifemi, Nifemi, help me get the mini basket in the kitchen. Nifemi rose, walked through the parlor, nearing the kitchen, but just as he approached the doorway, Soji, Nike's own son, stepped in the front and called him lazy rat. He mocked him as they had gotten accustomed to mocking him alongside their mother. Soji continued, always running to please my mother. Step aside. He pushed Nifemi away and entered the kitchen first. By nightfall, Soji began to shake uncontrollably. Nike rushed him to the hospital, but deep down, as she drove, she knew exactly what was happening to Soji. Her heart bled, yet she kept up the act, even though she already knew how it would end. At the hospital, nothing could suit Soji. Nike drove like a mad woman, tires screeching against the dust-filled roads, and her heart racing fast and pounding as if they would fall out of her chest. Her heart pounding and racing faster than the engine as she reached the crumbling gates of Aropola's shrine. Aropola, she shouted, please, I beg you, my son is dying. The old native priestess emerged from the shadows, her eyes as cold as stone. The medicine is irreversible, she said flatly, her voice laced with finality, her voice cold. Nike fell to her knees, tears soaking the earth. Please, please, hey, mother's plea, she wailed. But Aropola was unmoved. Go back and mourn the dead. With that, Aropola vanished like smoke in the wind. Nike sat there, stunned, crying. The same shrine that had helped her snatch life from Titi now slammed the door of mercy in her face. She rose slowly, broken, defeated, and drove silently back to the hospital, where her son Soji danced on the edge of death. His fever was like fire, his throat closed and his eyes bulged. He died by midnight. Nike screamed and wailed, her cries echoing into the night. No! Yay! 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 But inside, her world cracked. Oba returned home from a long business trip to bury his son, Soji. He had cut his business trip short when he heard about Soji's death. He held Nike as she wept, never knowing the truth behind Soji's death. Mama Oba visited soon after. She sat silently in the house during the funeral, as it was traditionally forbidden for her to attend her grandchild's burial. After the ceremony, she pulled Oba aside. Not all deaths are what they seem, she said quietly. Open your eyes, Oba. Look not at your sorrow, but at what walks beside it. Oba was angered. He asked his mother not to visit him again unless she came with peace. But her warning planted a seed. After the tragic mix-up that claimed her own son's life, Nike was filled with rage. She was filled with enormous hate for Nifemi. Every time her eyes met his, she was haunted by the twisted irony that a boy she had wanted dead was now alive, while her beloved son Soji lay in the earth. Nifemi became a ghost that walked her halls, a living reminder of her darkest deed. Another botched attempt to kill this wizard. She didn't just hate him anymore. She resented him. His survival mocked her failure, and her heart was full of murderous resolve to kill Nifemi. After Oba had left for a long business trip, Nike went to the market one morning. Shortly after, her two children, Bola and Shegun, had left for school. As she walked past a busy stall, a hawker's voice pierced through the air, shouting his advertisement. Buy this rat poison, or tapia. Buy this rat poison, or tapia. No rat can survive it. Keep away from food and wash your hands after use. Nike stopped. I have a big rat in my house. A very big rat. This should work, she thought darkly in her heart. To her, Nifemi was the very big rat. He was the rat, the biggest of them, and Otapiapia would end him. Her mind was consumed with one thought. Only one thought ever ruled her. Nifemi must die. She had grown weary of this native doctor, Aropola, especially after her cold indifference towards Soji's death. There will be no more charms this time, Nike thought. I will take fate into my own hands. She bought the poison. That afternoon, she cooked a glorious meal. Nike took her time to pound yam. She pounded it with the local mortar in the native style. She pounded like never before. She pounded so passionately. She cooked rich egusi soup and tender spiced meat. And in one plate, she lavishly decorated it with the biggest chunks of meat. And she poisoned that plate heavily and set it aside. That plate was a blue dish, and she specifically set it aside for Nifemi. Let him eat to his funeral, she thought grimly. She called out, Nifemi, Nifemi, your food is served on the kitchen table. The blue plate. Bola and Shegu own the food in the other two plates. She called out lovingly to Nifemi. Nike wanted to supervise the eating herself, so she asked Nifemi to bring the food to the dining table and sit in her very before. Sit here, she said. I want to discuss something with you, she said lovingly. Nifemi dared not disobey her. He carried the blue plate to the dining table and sat opposite her. Nike still continued in her plot. She was a great actress. She left her seat and came to sit beside him, teasing him playfully to create a very calm, loving and peaceful atmosphere. She teased him playfully through her pain and masked laughter, creating a warm atmosphere of love and acceptance. As he opened the plate, his eyes widened. Ma, there is much meat in this plate. Am I supposed to share with Bola and Shegu? Let me go and get plates and separate theirs. Nike quickly interrupted. No, my son. They are all yours. Everything in that plate is for you. She smiled, her tone warm but deceitful. You see, I want us to live as one family from now on. And always call me Mommy. Nifemi smiled faintly and said, Thank you, Mommy. Okay, now eat, my son, okay? Eat, she said with motherly care. Nifemi reached for his spoon to start eating, but Nike suddenly interrupted him again. Oh, before you start, please help me bring in the 2 crates of soft drinks from the boot of the car. She had thought to herself, who will bring in these crates when he is dead? Let him do it first before he rests in peace. Yes, Mommy, Nifemi replied and dashed outside. In her heart, Nike muttered coldly, Who is your mommy? Very soon you go and meet your dead mommy wherever she is. Her car was parked at the back of the house. As Nifemi got to the driveway, Alhaji Yusuf, a friendly neighbor, stopped him. Nifemi, why are you not in school today? Nifemi responded politely. I'll return soon, sir. I'm just taking time to understand city life. Alhaji laughed and began to counsel him, sharing his own life lessons. Meanwhile, Nike had waited and waited and waited inside until impatience got the best part of her. She went outside and found Nifemi still talking. I sent you on errand and you are here, standing, chatting away, she scolded. But her irritation doubled when she glanced at her car. Oh no, a flat tire, she groaned internally. Oya, take out the soft drinks. I'll rush down the road to the vulcanizers to pump the tire. Nifemi obeyed. She helped Nifemi in carrying out the 2 crates of soft drinks from the car. A pretentious smile generously spreading across her face. After they offloaded the crate, Nike drove off. Nifemi carried the first crate upstairs, dropped it, then came back for the second. As he picked up the second crate, the gate suddenly swung open. It was Bola, back early from school. She followed him inside. I'm starving, she cried. Nifemi pointed her immediately to her plate and finally sat to eat his own. But in moments, before he could blink his eyes, before he could even settle to even sit properly and eat, Bola stormed out of the kitchen furious. Thief! Thief! How can mommy give you all this meat and give us very little meat? When? How? I'll eat it myself and report you. Thief! And with that, she grabbed Nifemi's plate and began eating out of spite. Within minutes, Bola fell, rigid, cold. Nike returned almost immediately. As she stepped in, she was humming softly, thinking in her heart, mission accomplished. I will see the big rat dead on the floor. I will see the big rat dead on the floor. As she stepped through the doorway, she was taken aback by the sight that met her eyes. It froze her. It froze the song in her throat. Her daughter's lifeless body lay motionless on the floor. Nike's face twisted in disbelief as she staggered backward, her hands flying to her mouth. A choked sob escaped her lips before she collapsed to her knees beside her child. Trembling fingers reached out to touch the girl's body, as if hoping warmth might return. Then a scream ripped from deep within her chest, a raw, anguished wail that echoed through the walls. It was so piercing and filled with pain that neighbors were alerted, drawn by the sound of a mother's soul shattering into pieces. Her tears were not for the dead, but for the still living. A second botched attempt, and her own had paid the ultimate price again. Bola! Bola! Oh! Bola! Oh! Bola! She cried. Bola's eyes were firmly shut and unblinking, her mouth tightly closed. The meal she was eating and all other items on the dining table were now scattered on the floor with her. She was gone. The neighbors came rushing in, breathless. They gathered quickly, their faces etched with shock. By the time they arrived, Nike had fainted beside Bola's body after shaking it without getting a response. She could not bear the obvious truth. When they arrived, they revived her. She wailed as she woke up. She wailed with a voice that could crack glass. Bola! Bola! My baby! Wake up! Somebody help! Bola, please don't leave me! Bola, please don't leave me! She slapped her own thighs. She rubbed her daughter's chest, then fell over her like a mad woman. People succeeded in pulling her away. Tears poured from her eyes, loud, overwhelming, theatrical. People managed to pull her off the body. Some cried, others gasped in disbelief. Was this not Bola they had seen a few hours ago, bubbling with life? Some wondered at the meaningless of life. But only Mama Bisi stood still, her eyes sharp and moving all over the scene. From the cup to the tray of food that was now littered on the floor, to the plate, to the food, all on the floor. She turned slowly, her eyes narrowing. Who cooked this food? Nike's voice cracked. I did. I made lunch. She said she was hungry. She must have choked. Then Mama Bisi whispered, almost to herself, it was not meant for her. Heads turned. What did you say? Asked Mama Lola cautiously. Mama Bisi stepped forward, her lips quivering with fury and pointed at Nike. This food, this drink, it wasn't meant for Bola. Nike, still on the floor, raised her head, her face red and twisted. You dare! You stand over my daughter's corpse and said this? You are evil, Nike cried. You are a wicked old woman. You come to insult me in my deepest sorrow. Bola is my child, my blood. Ah! Yes, Mama Bisi hissed and continued, still pointing at Nike. And sometimes blood is the price of blood. I said it before, her death is not ordinary. The compound erupted. Enough, cried Mama Zainab. Mama Bisi, this is not the time now, Haba. You don't accuse a grieving mother like this, another woman scolded. You should be ashamed, said one man. Let her mourn in peace. Another said, she hasn't even buried the child, and you are calling her a murderer. But Mama Bisi would not retreat. She doesn't need to confess. Her silence is loud enough. She knows what she did, even if no one here has the spine to admit it. Nike broke into louder sobs. Her weeping became theatrical, desperate. She banged her head on the floor. God, are you seeing this? God, they are mocking my pain, accusing me while my child lies cold. Oh God. Ifemi stood in the corner with the neighbors. He now knew what the food had been. He had watched Bola snatch it from him and then decide to eat his portion, saying, you can't have all these chunks to yourself. Mama Bisi's eyes met Nifemi's. He looked down, afraid, ashamed, confused. But the crowd had already chosen. They led Mama Bisi out of the house, scolding her as if she were the offender. This is not the time. Let the family mourn. As they dragged her out, Mama Bisi turned one last time. She will cry again. Because the truth will not die with Bola. Though sobbing profusely, Nike managed to call her cousin who owned the hospital to send an ambulance. Neighbors assisted the health workers to get Bola's lifeless body into the ambulance. At the hospital, Bola was pronounced dead on arrival. But Nike's cousin, who was the owner of the facility, intervened quietly. He signed off all documentation without raising questions. That same night, Bola was buried. No ceremonies, no family gatherings. It was done under the guise of tradition that a child's corpse should not linger unburied. But Nike had other motives. Her true reason was darker. She needed Bola laid to rest before her husband returned to avoid autopsy or any form of questioning or any form of investigation. Oba was not happy that Bola was buried while he was away, but Nike cried, I could not have left her in the morgue. It was a long business trip. I needed closure. Oba declined to leave the state again for any business trip. He wanted to remain at home, to monitor things himself. Perhaps Nike had been unable to manage the home front alone, and it had led to the loss of two of his children. Oba's decision did not deter Nike. Now hollowed by grief and consumed by hate, Nike took the final step. She hired a killer from the outskirts of the state, a faceless man who killed without noise. He was called a silent killer, a silencer. His name was Kasali. She wanted the killing done professionally. She called Nifemi and handed him a package. "Take this outfit to the market," she said. "It's from one of my customers, the woman who sells female clothes. Her shop is painted yellow and brown. She'll be expecting you." But Nifemi had no idea that death awaited him. The assassin had already been given everything: the building's description, the color, the time frame, and the most chilling of all, the target's details. As soon as Nifemi stepped out of the house to carry out the assignment, Nike called Kasali to inform him that the target was on his way. Kasali assured her there would be no mistakes. That morning, Nifemi set out innocently to run errands. He boarded a bus going to Osiki, but his true destination was Oriki. A simple mistake, one misplaced syllable, set in motion a life-saving detour. Coincidentally, both Osiki and Oriki existed, but they were worlds apart. The moment Nifemi realized the journey felt far too long, he began to grow suspicious. When he finally arrived at Osiki, it hit him. He had gone to the wrong place, and worse still, he had spent every kobo in his pocket offsetting the fare to the wrong destination. Stranded, confused and alone, Nifemi had no choice but to begin walking. He trekked for miles, asking strangers for directions, tracing roads that didn't know his name. Meanwhile, back at home, Nike's phone rang non-stop. The assassin, Kasali, was fuming. "Madam," he hissed over the phone, "your boy is not here. It's been 4 hours. My time is not free. I want my full money. This is a total waste." Kasali was furious. Nifemi had vanished and the window for the kill had closed. Oba, growing suspicious, asked, "Who keeps calling you?" But Nike avoided the question with a rehearsed smile. Soon night fell. Nifemi still hadn't returned. Oba's concern deepened. "Where exactly did you send him?" he asked. Nike's heart was happy that he wasn't yet back, but she pretended to be afraid. Deep down, she prayed that something had gone wrong and harmed him, even if it wasn't from Kasali. But aloud, she faked worry and sighed heavily. "I'm beginning to get worried too," she lied. Oba grabbed his car keys, stormed towards the door. Just as he opened it, there he was, Nifemi, tired, dusty, feet swollen, face pale with exhaustion, but alive. Nike's heart sank. The boy she had sent to his death had walked back into her home, saved by nothing but a name mix-up and an empty pocket. Oba pulled Nifemi into a tight embrace, his voice trembling with relief as he welcomed him home, profoundly grateful that his son was safe. Meanwhile, Nike hovered nearby, feigning joy, her lips curled up in dazzling smile that glittered with false warmth, a mask barely concealing the storm churning deep beneath her calm facade. Nike paid Kasali his full money, not out of honor but to cover her tracks. She didn't want loose ends, not with a killer who knew too much. But desperation gripped her again. She begged. Since his father returned, Nifemi is back in school. The school bus drops him and my son Shegun right at the compound gate at 3 p.m. He has a peach-colored school bag and wears black shoes. I have also sent his picture. Stick around. kidnap him and finish the job. I'll pay you again and double for your trouble." Kasali, though frustrated, agreed to try once more. That afternoon, he hid near the gate, watching, waiting, but fate had other plans. Teacher Steve, a kind-hearted man who had taken a special liking to Nifemi, decided to hold him back after school for lessons. He had noticed the gaps in Nifemi's academics and began offering personal evening lessons just for him, to assist him to brush up and catch up with the rest in the class. That day was the first session. Kasali waited. Hours slipped by as he remained in place until 7 p.m. for a task that should not have taken him hours, a task that should have taken him only minutes based on his professionalism. Weariness weighed heavily on him, but even heavier were the piercing, suspicious gaze of neighbors, passers-by and residents whose eyes seemed to strip him bare with silent questions he could not answer. It was a private estate with tight security, and though he had skillfully evaded detection thanks to his professionalism, lingering beyond 7 p.m. risked blowing his cover and seemed reckless, so it was time to go. His patience snapped. He called Nike, his voice sharp, cold and final. "Woman, you must be joking. Don't ever call me again. And you must pay me my full money." He hung up. By the time Nifemi was done, it was 8 p.m. So Teacher Steve didn't just drop him off. He personally escorted him into the house, chatting and laughing with the boy all the way. And just like that, the second assassination attempt crumbled, foiled by the kindness and a teacher's unexpected affection. Once again, Nike paid Kasali his full amount, this time with a clenched fist and a heart burning with fury. She couldn't afford another failed attempt, but she wasn't done. Her heart was still burning with fury. Her heart still communicated only one thing: Nifemi must die. She summoned Kasali one last time, her voice laced with venom. "Come to the house this time. Finish him right under this roof," she said coldly. "Let me see how he escapes this one." It was no longer about caution. It was war. A murder, plotting murder, inside her own home. And this time, she was ready to make sure nothing, absolutely nothing went wrong. She told Kasali, "He sleeps on the right side of the bed. Kill him in silence. No mistake. You are the best. That is why you are called Silencer, the silent killer. That is why I have insisted on you doing the job." "How do I gain access into your house?" Kasali asked. "Easy. I will leave the door open," she replied. It was a modest 3-bedroom apartment. Nike and Oba shared one room, the master's bedroom, soaked in silence and secrets. The second room once belonged to Bola, now late. Before Bola, that room belonged to Titi, Oba's first wife, now buried but never forgotten. A room haunted by memories and unfinished prayers. The third room was for the boys, Nifemi and Shegun, and had once been Soji's too. It was bedtime, and the silence of the house settled like a heavy cloak. Oba had locked the entrance door before coming to bed, certain that his family was safe for the night. This was always his duty every night. But as the shadows danced on the walls and everyone slept, Nike silently slipped from the bed, her movements delicate as a cat, and crept to the door to unlock it, her face unreadable in the dim glow. Midnight came, thick with its stillness, until a faint sound echoed through the house, a rustling, A soft clink. Oba's eyes flew open. He strained his ears, listening, and then turned to Nike, beckoning her. But Nike merely mumbled and crawled deeper into the blanket, feigning a deep, impenetrable sleep. Suspicion flickered in Oba's eyes as he slipped from the bed. Stealthily, he stepped through the corridor. In the kitchen, he found Nifemi drinking water. Oba's voice was low but firm as he spoke. Nifemi, you must be careful. Drinking so much water at bedtime can disturb your sleep. Nifemi nodded sleepily and set the cup aside. Oba placed a gentle hand on his son's shoulder, guiding him back to the quiet halls. He motioned towards the door of the boys' room and waited and watched his son as he stepped inside and gently closed the door behind him. Only then did Oba turn away. The assassin entered silently into the house. The door had already been unlocked by Nike, and so he had an unhindered access into the house. He made no noise. He entered silently. A squeeze, a breath, and then silence again. In the morning, Nifemi greeted Nike while sweeping the parlor. Her heart dropped. She stared at him, pale and confused. She ran to the room. There on the bed lay her last son, Shegun. Cold. She screamed, pulling her hair, clutching her chest. She climbed the bed, attempting to wake him up. Then she got down and began marching around the room in an imaginary march past parade, occasionally shouting. While Nifemi slipped out to drink water under the cover of darkness, Shegun awoke, driven by the surging urge to ease himself. He stumbled into the ensuite bathroom of their room to ease himself. The echo of trickling water mingling with the hush of the night. Moments later, he emerged, eyes heavy with sleep, and without thinking, he flung himself onto the nearest side of the bed, which was Nifemi's side of the bed. Nifemi's side of the bed was the right side of the bed, which was nearest to the bathroom. Before Oba returned, Nifemi slept on the floor. But on Oba's return, Nike had swiftly assigned Nifemi the right side of the bed. So that night, when Nifemi returned and saw Shegun sprawled across his bedside, lost in deep slumber, he paused for a while. His breath held, not sure of what to do. But instead of waking his brother, he quietly climbed into Shegun's side of the bed and pulled the blanket around himself. In the quiet, shifting shadows, the two brothers lay asleep in each other's beds, the house still once more. Oba rushed in, hearing the sound of Nike's cry, and found his wife laughing in the boys' room, her clothes torn, her eyes wide and empty. Then came her confession, every detail, every sin, every death. I killed Titi, I killed Soji, I poisoned Bola, I ordered the death of Nifemi, but death took my own. Oba did not weep. He looked in silence. Mama Oba's warnings came ringing in his ears. Nike rushed out of the boys' room almost immediately. She rushed out from the boys' room where Shegun's corpse still lay. She ran towards the dining where Nifemi was hiding, chasing after Nifemi. Oba had followed suit the moment she fled the room. As she lunged to capture Nifemi, she grabbed the knife from the table near her and aimed it at him, but Oba was swift, just in time to disarm her and force her to the ground before she could reach the boy. Nifemi ran into his father's arms. When she got up from the floor, she let out a roar, angry and guttural, then charged at the Kufis tearing through them violently with her hands and anything within her reach. Nike stabbed the cushions profusely. She was raving mad, like one possessed with a million vexed spirits. Neighbors, hearing the screams, had called the police. They were tired. They knew something extreme had happened again, and they feared that they would become culpable if they continued to indulge these strange occurrences. The blare of sirens from the police vans echoed through the compound. Oba held Nifemi tightly and reached for the door. He was escaping from his own house. A house supposed to give him comfort had taunted him with so much sorrow. With Nifemi in his arms, Oba began, "Titi, even in death, you remain the shield over our son. When I was too blind to see and too weak to question, you were watching, guarding. Though the world robbed you of justice, you did not let the same fate fall on Nifemi. You gave him life, and somehow through the storm and shadows, you gave him protection too. I now know the truth, and my heart breaks, not only for your pain, but for your quiet strength. Thank you, Titi, for loving, for watching, for saving our son when no one else could." The police made their way into the house, trying to cuff Nike. She was raving mad. Nike ran away from the house, raving mad, howling like a spirit, and stabbing through anything that dared stand in her way. Some say she walks the railway tracks in Ebute Metta, whispering names into the wind, talking and crying to shadows. Others say they've seen her bathing in the lagoon, speaking to ghosts. But no single child answers her call anymore, because her womb, once filled with envy, brought death to its own children.